as somebody who watched a lot of basketball, when I was asked to do this event, I thought it was like a trick question, But the thing about David is, when I think about him, and this is particularly true because I watched him as a New York resident and fan of the New York teams. I'm being serious here, is that, there are some things you can't take the calipers to and measure by going on Google and looking at stats. You could see the two-time NBA championship. You could see the Olympic gold medals, the MVP, the Hall of Fame, all of that stuff. But as far as Mike Ozanian is concerned, none of that measures anything about what this man is. And if I had to put it in one word, as the late, great Jim Michaels used to say to me all the time, he was a great editor at Forbes for many years, keep it short. I would use the word class. And that's how I would describe this man right here. So, David, it's an honor to be here with you, and thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm glad we can share, and hopefully you guys have some good questions, and I can address all the things you guys want to talk about tonight.
One of the things in reading about you that I didn't know was that when you went to the Naval Academy, it wasn't to play basketball primarily. I mean, you go in there for engineering, and you kind of had a growth spurt there in terms of
a little
height.
Growth spurt, yeah. Most people don't grow 6 inches in college, but I picked Navy because it was a great engineering school, and it's really what I thought I wanted to do. I started off, I ended up being a civil engineer in the Navy for my 2 years while I was serving. But while I was there, our basketball team got a little bit better, and the doors opened for basketball. So I was very fortunate to be able to end up as a professional basketball player.
Your dad went to the Naval Academy.
No, he didn't. He was in the Navy.
He
enlisted in the Navy coming out of high school, and he had actually dropped out of college and enlisted in the Navy, and really had a very good experience in the military. I'd grown up around the Navy bases, so my grandfather was in the Army, and so I grew up around service, military service, and I always had a high regard for what that meant for our country, and so big part of me wanted to serve. So
it wasn't like something like, your dad forced you to go to the academy. This was something you really wanted to do.
No, actually, my dad was trying to get me to go somewhere else because he knew that I had the service obligation after I graduated. And my dad in high school, you talk about somebody with some foresight, some vision. My dad actually told me in high school, he said, and I was 6'7", I weighed 172 pounds. And he told me in high school, he said, you're going to play professional basketball. And I said, Dad, you're out of your mind. there's no way I just couldn't picture myself in that scenario. But Dad always believed that, and I think that was part of the reason he didn't push me one way or the other, but I could kind of tell he wanted me to go to another school because of the service obligation. But I felt like the Naval Academy was going to be a great challenge academically, and I felt like it was going to put me in the best position to be successful in the future.
What was it like when you got drafted by the Spurs?
Wow, amazing. You don't. It's hard to see yourself in that position. I watched the draft. Just the other day I watched the draft, and still it doesn't register to me that I was that guy. It's incredible honor. There was coming in as the #1 player. There's a lot of pressure, and you feel like the team is betting their future on you almost. and so, San Antonio had come off some really tough years. The year before I came, we were 21 and 61 or something. There's a tremendous amount of pressure coming in, and I remember my first time coming into the locker room, and it was the year before I played. And I walked into the locker room, and I go to shake hands with everybody, and I just got this feeling that everybody looked at me like, who the heck do you think you are? You're going to come in here and change things? And so I felt that pressure almost immediately that, hey, I'm supposed to have this great impact, and I'm this young kid. I'm dumb. I don't know anything. I'm coming into a league, and I'm just trying to make a difference.
Was there any one player who took you under his wing and sort of said, follow me, I'll show you what to do?
We had guys who were, some veteran guys. Terry Cummings had played on some pretty good teams, the Milwaukee Bucks, and so Terry really tried to kind of help me get adjusted to the league, and he was a big, strong, he was 6'9", 260, and just kind of an enforcer. And so he took me under his wing a little bit and tried to help me figure out what I needed to figure out. But, like I said, with that type of pressure on you, it's really on you. You have to figure it out. You have to go into that scenario and figure out, what does this team need? I couldn't be anybody else, right? Everybody's saying, oh, you should be like Michael Jordan, or you should be like Magic, or you should be like – I'm not those guys. And with my personality coming from the military, everybody thought I was this big nerd, and I was. And so, I couldn't try to be something I wasn't. I couldn't come in and act like, I was the man. I had to come in and kind of figure out, how do I put each guy in a position where they could be successful. I mean, that's what I learned in the Navy, right? You learn, hey, you're going to work with a team. You're going to put guys in positions where they could be successful. That's what you're going to do. And so that was the way I approached the locker room. How do I make this guy better? How do I make this guy better? How do I help these guys be more successful? I can take all the pressure. Everyone's going to either blame me if we lose or whatever, but how do I help them and make their situations easier?
And the Spurs back then, when you first got there, were not the franchise they are today. The sort of the NBA model franchise of teamwork. And I mean, I believe you had like 7 head coaches during your time there.
Yeah, we went through a little transition period. It's probably my fault. I got half of those guys fired. But no, I mean, we had a lot of issues. I mean, you think about it. The first year, my first team that I was on, I think we had 3 guys that went to prison from that team. So to say it wasn't the ideal scenario is probably a little bit of an understatement, yeah.
When would you say was the point where the team started to really turn it around and say, what, we're on the right path?
When we got Tim Duncan, that was a big moment. Adding talent always makes a difference, but even I could see that first year, you could see little signs that the culture was going to change. I mean, we brought in '89 was my first year, we drafted Sean Elliott, who was another, really upbeat, positive kid and a very team-oriented, team-focused kid. And you could start to see that, okay, we're starting to add those pieces that are going to change the mentality, change the culture. We were a small market team. You think about being in a tough situation. We were a small market team. We had no free agents wanted to come to San Antonio. There was a threat that the team was going to move because our corporate support was really struggling, and we had to build a team from scratch, literally from scratch. And so my thing was, we need to start in this locker room. We need to start with culture, right? We need to get guys to buy in because ownership thought one thing, management thought one thing, players thought one thing. It was a mess. Nobody was on the same page. And I remember when I first got there, the ownership was, they wanted to increase our ticket sales, season ticket sales. So they said, hey, David, would you go on this little 10-city tour? It's a caravan. We'll go through, South Texas in July. Are you kidding me? Am I going on the South Texas tour in July? But, me being the guy, I'm thinking, sure, absolutely, I'll go. I'll go to all these cities. I'll do all the things you want me to do, and we'll build a fan base. And I went back in the locker room, and the guys were like, what are you doing, man? Why are you doing that? They're not going to pay you for that. And I thought, well, isn't it better if we get more fans? And, like shouldn't we help this situation? And the guys were like, oh, well, yeah, man, they're going to use you until you're not good, and then they're going to get rid of you. So they don't really care about you. And I thought, you talk about dysfunctional. Wow, this is dysfunctional. I'm like, well, look, we got to get on the same page. We got to get on the same page with our coaches, with our management, and with our owner. And so that was the challenge over the next 10, 15 years, is to figure out how do we get everybody on the same page.
How important was it for Tim Duncan to be on the same page with you in terms of bringing the rest of the team over?
Yeah, that was the easy part. Tim is, I mean, you all saw what he did on the court as a player, a phenomenal player. But, you know, to be honest with you, he's even a more phenomenal man. Unfortunately, the public doesn't really get to see that side of him as much, but brilliant guy. Tim is, he has one of the quickest learning curves of anybody I've ever seen. But he has this humble attitude, like he really wants to learn, right? When you get somebody who comes in and they're like, teach me everything. What can I learn? I mean, the kid was already pretty good. When I played on the Olympic team the Dream Team in '92. No, '96 team. I played with the '96 team, and so we played exhibition games against college guys. And Tim was on one of those teams. And so on that '96 team, we had me, Shaq, and Akeem Olajuwon. And so you imagine you're a college kid, you're coming out in an exhibition game, you got to play against the three of us. And Tim just went to work. I mean, Tim, he had 22 points and 10 boards or something like that, but it was easy. He just made it look so easy. And I thought to myself, man, that guy is going to be very good. He was smooth. He couldn't really jump or anything, but the guy he had all the skill set and everything. And I thought, wow, that guy's going to be really good, not really knowing that a year later we were going to draft this guy. And so when we drafted him, I remember just snickering to myself thinking, oh, my God, people do not know what we just got. This guy is going to just blow people away. He's amazing. And sure enough, you know, Tim lived up to, you know, every expectation.
When people look at certain sports teams and they say, you know, like the Spurs and, you know, there are others as well. When they win championships, they use the term, you know, they put their ego aside, the players, you know, and focus on team. Is that something that comes from the players generally, or is it top down from the management?
Well, first of all, I don't think people put their egos aside ever. So that's not true. You learn how to work together. You know, you learn how to, you know, in order to be a championship team, you're going to learn how to help somebody else be successful. That's one, if you look at LeBron James, that's where he's grown the most, right? He's always been a great player. But now he puts those other guys in a position where they can be successful. And he's learned how to help them. And so I think, you know, if you look at that Cleveland team, you know, there's no lack of egos on that team. And they managed to win a championship last year against all odds. They were down 3-1. No one gave them a chance to win it, and they were able to put it together. But really, it comes down to how much are you willing to sacrifice, right? How much are you willing to put everyone else in a position where they can be successful? And that's really, you know, where Golden State fell apart, right? You get a guy suspended, then the whole series turns around, the momentum goes in the opposite direction, and then it's hard when you guys, anybody who's played sports or played golf or played any sport, you know, once things start going against you, man, it's hard to turn it back around. And so you don't want that ball rolling in the wrong direction, and they got it rolling in the wrong direction. So, you know, that's what Cleveland did better than Golden State last year. They put their egos aside enough to come together, and that's what any championship team has to do. Is to figure out how to help each other. And, you know, right now Golden State's the best in the league at that. Those guys enjoy playing together. They put each other in a position to be successful. They help each other all the time. They're rooting for each other. It's just a great environment. Steve Kerr has you know, taken what Mark Jackson did and even taken it to another level.
As you look at how the game's evolved since you left the NBA, what do you see?
Wow, lots of change. I mean, the game it's like everything else, right? In our society, you look at how technology is changing our lives so quickly, and people don't even know what tomorrow is going to bring. And that's what it looks like in the NBA right now. You're looking at all these young kids coming out of college, far too young. I won't say that. That's not fair. They're coming out of college. It's an unbelievable opportunity to play in the NBA, and they're taking it earlier than ever before. Now, I've always been an advocate of, you know, grow up, mature. You know, if you're gonna build your reputation and build your name, do it in a safer environment, right? College is if you're at Duke, stay at Duke. Shoot, you're gonna play on TV. You're gonna have opportunity. It's amazing. You're gonna make the money. Don't worry about the money. But that's easier said than done, right? You say, don't worry about the money. Yeah, I'm worried about the money. It's an amazing thing. So guys are in a rush to get to the league, and they're in a rush to get their career started. And unfortunately, a lot of those guys, their careers are going to be short because they're not prepared. They're not mentally and emotionally and physically prepared. And it's a big jump. I always tell these kids when I talk to them, look, in high school, you were the biggest, strongest, fastest guy. This is simple. It was 90% physical. Then you get to college, it starts to even out a little bit. And then you get to the pros, it's 90% mental. Everyone is big, strong, and fast. So you have no advantage there. Now you've got to be mentally tougher than the next guy. You've got to own that guy. When you step out on the floor, I remember my first few games in the league, man, I come out there and, Karl Malone, I see this huge elbow flying in my face. I'm like, whoa, hey, what are you doing? And Carl's like, he's like a big dog peeing on his territory. He's like, who are you, young fella? And I just remember thinking, okay, this is a different deal. This is not like any other thing I've done. I now have to assert myself, right? I have to walk out on the court with a different mentality, right? I gotta go out here and I gotta own this court. Because they don't respect me unless I do that. And so it was a learning experience, man. It becomes so mental at that stage, and that's really the challenge. So these young kids coming in early, it's not to their advantage to leave college. You're 18 years old and 19 years old, and you're still a little kid physically and you're a little kid mentally. And so really, that's a challenge. And so, but the league's going to adjust to that. And these young guys, it's going to take them 4, 5, 6 years, but they'll figure it out. Just like Kobe Bryant, took him a little while, he figured it out. All these guys, Kevin Garnett, took him a few years. Kevin Garnett ran up against the wall. We were playing Minnesota. We used to beat them like a drum. And so it took him a long time to figure out what is it going to take to be successful. And so it's not going to be any different for these young kids now. It's going to take them a while. Everybody's talking about these guys, Markelle Fultz. I mean, it's going to take them a while. It's not that easy. You're just there. Every once in a while, you get a LeBron James or a Tim Duncan who immediately makes an incredible impact. But most of these kids, it's going to take them a few years.
David, the dollars are so big in the NBA right now. In terms of having, perhaps encouraging college players to stay in school longer, would you advocate something like, for instance, if not paying them a salary, allowing them to perhaps control their marketing rights, their endorsement deals while they're in college? So at least, it's not a burden on the school, and at least these young guys can make a little bit of money.
Yeah, there's certainly some solution in there. It's inherently unfair, right? Because if I go to Duke or Kansas, that's a different value proposition, right? And so if you give the kids some, or in football, if I go to Alabama or Florida State or something, that's a different value proposition. Even then, something like you go to an A&M or Purdue or something. It's Alabama can support, maybe even paying their kids some, but how many schools can, right? There's 40, 50 schools that really make money, and then there's 1,200 that don't. Mm-hmm. And so, 1,200 trying to keep up and running fast as they can, trying to figure out the system. So there's got to be some balance in there where you can allow the kids. You allow other college students to go out and make money, and if they have an opportunity, they go make money. They go do what they do best. And certainly, you shouldn't be able to take away a kid's avenue to make that money. And maybe you put it in a trust fund, maybe you put it on the side until they get out of college. I don't know what the solution is, but there's got to be some medium in there.
The year you win your second NBA title, you decide to retire, and I think right after that, the NBA named its award that it gives to the player who has the best community service. They name it after you, the David Robinson plaque. I was wondering who told you about it. How did you find out, and how did it make you feel?
Yeah, well, David Stern told me about it, and that, And it was incredible. You know, thinking about, you know, the honor of having your name on a trophy, right? Like what would you want to represent, right? We were at the thing last night. It was the Bill Russell MVP trophy, right? That's a pretty cool deal, right? Like Bill Russell, and that's the MVP thing. You know, in my mind, having my name on the Community Service Award is the best. Like if I was going to put my name on anything, that's what I would put it on. I mean, I just think that, you know, hopefully it inspires and encourages people to look at their communities as a part of their business, right? A part of their opportunity. I mean, I played basketball. I ran up and down the court and, you know, dunked a basketball. That means nothing to anybody. But at the end of the day, if I can use that platform to really make lives better, if I can use that platform to impact the city of San Antonio. I mean, over the years, you know, we were able to start, we started a school called the Carver Academy, and we grew it, and here we are now, 18 years later, 17, 18 years later, and we're part of a charter school system. We're opening up 6 new schools this fall. We'll have 20 new schools, 8,000 kids, and over the last 12 years, we've sent every single graduate to college. I mean, it's an amazing deal. So, you know, thank you, to use your platform in a way that truly impacts people's lives. I mean, this last year, I went down to the Valley. We have 20 schools down in the Rio Grande Valley, about 15,000 students, and I went to the graduation in San Juan, and you drive through far Texas, and the kids that go to this school come from this little barrio, and every single one of these kids walked across the stage and held up their banner on what university, and over half of them were first in their family to go to college, and you could see that this is a transformative thing, right? Like you're making a difference, a real, tangible difference in these people's lives, and you're giving these kids hope and a new vision that they never had, and it's it's amazing that this basketball game gave me a platform to be able to help in that way. It's just tremendous.
Education's such a big issue, obviously. What do you feel, especially with this experience with Carver, some of the misperceptions perhaps that are out there about education, what makes for a good school, what enables kids to graduate and go on and have very successful lives?
Yeah, you know, I think probably the biggest thing is that I'd say number one, throwing money at it isn't the solution, right? Like, what I believe, it may not be the truth, but what I believe is that character is a big part of teaching. Mm-hmm. And so when we started Carver, we started as a faith-based school, because I felt like if you kids don't know where you come from, if you don't know who you are, then why are you doing what you're doing? Like, I'm in the NBA, I'm watching these guys, I'm watching families fall apart every single year, because guys making a lot of money don't know how to go home to their wives. It's crazy. To me, that's crazy. You got a beautiful wife at home, and you don't go home? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's the biggest measure of you as a man. Well, this is your legacy. This is what you're going to leave behind. I got my son, David Jr. here, and he's my oldest son, and he is my legacy. Like, he's lived in my house. Now he's out. Glad to be out, I'm sure. But he's out now, and like for 21 years, he was there learning from me, watching and trying to, figure out what his path was going to be. And what he does is what I'm holding on to, right, as my legacy. That's part of who I am. Like, so what message am I sending to my kids when I'm saying, yeah, well, me and your wife, me and your mom, we really tried to work it out, but, it just didn't work. Like, what? What do you mean it just didn't work? Like, what? What do you mean? Like, didn't you get married to her? Didn't you tell her at one point that you were going to be with her for the rest of your life? You made that promise. So what good is any word you say to me now? You made a promise to her that you were going to be with her for the rest of your lives, and you broke that promise. What does that mean to me as your child? So that's a strong statement, right? Like, that's But we don't always see it that way. And so to me, character really does matter. And I think that that's the part of education, that you've got to have leaders that portray that character. The kids have to see it. They have to see it in their teachers. They have to see it in the leaders of their school. They have to hear it every day. In our school, we have 6 pillars: leadership, initiative, integrity, faith, service, discipline. Those things were very important. We made the kids memorize scriptures that were associated with each of those scriptures, with each of those pillars. And that just becomes a part of you, right? Integrity. The Proverbs 10:9, the man of integrity walks securely. He doesn't look around. He's not worried about what's going to happen, because guess what? I told the truth yesterday. Chase me down today. I don't care, because I told the truth. So, the man of integrity walks securely. So just teaching these kids about what service is and why that's an important part of every aspect of our lives, right? Leadership, what is that, right? Leadership is putting people in a position where they can be successful. That's true leadership. And so getting them to understand all of these different pillars, to me, I thought was every bit as important as what we were teaching them in that classroom. And I think that's part of what allowed us to have initial success. And then now as a charter school, we've had to obviously take the faith component and back it out in after school and surrounding school programs, because a lot of the families that came to our school wanted that. But in a charter school situation, you can't make that a part of your mandatory school day. So we still try to provide opportunities for our kids to really grow in that way and to support the families that want that. But we still have, our pillars. We still have, our value system that, these are the important things, man. This is what you need to know.
Before we get to some questions, I'd like you to elaborate a little bit, please, David, how you took these values and used them in the Admiral Capital Group and in your business endeavors.
Yeah, to me, my business career is just an extension of what basketball was for me, because basketball was a great avenue, and it was a ton of fun. I loved playing basketball. Make no mistake about it. It was great. But that's not who I am. It's just what I did. And so I wanted to use that as an opportunity to do great things in the community. And we were fortunately able to leverage that and do some wonderful things. But when my career came to an end, I didn't want my capacity to impact communities to come to an end. And so, previously when I was in the military, I did construction, contract management, helped the government, build facilities on new bases. And so, real estate was kind of more of a natural thing for me. And while I was playing, Dan Baskis is my business partner. He was at Goldman, he became just a really good partner for me on the philanthropic side. And he had such a passion to increase what we were doing. He was a perfect business partner to get involved with. And so that's how Admiral Capital came about. And basically, we tithe out of our returns. Our investors, obviously, they don't have to participate, but our owners, including USAA, who is our biggest investor, we take 10%, and we're committed to using that 10% in the communities where we're investing. And so that, to me, it's just a long-term value proposition that, just like with the Spurs, there's a value there, right? Everybody knows what the character of the team is, and they know what we're about. That's how Admiral Capital, I want us to build to that place where we have the culture and we have, everyone knows what we are about and wants to do business with us or doesn't want to do business with us specifically for that reason.